Emma worked the late shift at Millie's Diner, a small place tucked between the old theater and the gas station on a road that most people just drove through without stopping. It was almost midnight when she spotted him sitting alone at the far end of the counter. He looked rough, a mess of tangled hair under a hood, a long scruffy beard hiding most of his face. His clothes were soaked from the sudden rain outside, and his boots dripped water onto the floor. He stared at the menu but didn't touch it. Emma noticed his hands trembled slightly when he reached for the glass of water she gave him. Emma was used to seeing people like him come and go. Some stayed for warmth, some begged for coffee, but most slipped out before dawn without saying a word. But there was something different about this man. He didn't ask for anything. He just sat there, eyes hidden behind strands of wet hair, shivering in silence. Emma's own life wasn't easy. She worked double shifts, sometimes 3, just to keep the tiny apartment she shared with her daughter. Her husband had left her years ago, leaving behind only a tarnished silver wedding ring. She wore it on a chain around her neck, a reminder of the love she once believed in. Sometimes she wondered why she kept it. Maybe because it felt like hope, or maybe because it made her feel stronger. As she poured fresh coffee for the truckers in the corner booth, she kept glancing back at the man. Her co-worker Dave leaned over and whispered, "Emma, don't waste your time. He probably can't pay." Emma frowned. "Maybe he just needs a chance, or maybe he'll just run," Dave snorted, wiping his hands on his apron. "Watch and see." Emma took a deep breath, grabbed a bowl of warm soup, and set it in front of the man. He flinched, then looked up. His eyes, kind and tired, met hers. They were eyes that had seen pain, but still held onto something gentle. He opened his mouth as if to protest, but no words came out. "Eat," Emma said softly. "It's on the house." His lips trembled as he tried to say thank you. He lifted the spoon with shaking fingers and tasted the soup like it was the first warm thing he'd had in days. Emma turned away so he wouldn't see the tears welling up in her eyes. Time crawled by as the diner emptied. The neon sign flickered. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Emma sat at a nearby stool, pretending to sort receipts, but really watching him. He finished every drop of soup and then just sat there again, staring at the empty bowl like he wished it would refill itself. Finally, Emma stood up, took off the chain from her neck, and held the small silver ring in her palm. She could feel the weight of every broken promise it carried, but in that moment, she knew it was worth more to him than it ever was to her. She walked over, gently sliding the ring across the counter. "I want you to take this," she said. "Go to Mr. Goldstein's pawn shop down the street. He's open all night. He'll give you enough for a few good meals, maybe even a place to sleep." The man stared at the ring, then at Emma. His eyes glistened with disbelief. He shook his head, pushing it back toward her, but she closed his hand around it. "Please," she whispered. "You need this more than I do." Silence filled the diner. It was so quiet she could hear the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. The man's shoulders began to shake. He buried his face in his hands and sobbed. Muffled cries of a man who had forgotten how to accept kindness. Dave watched from the doorway, speechless for once. He didn't understand Emma, but something in that moment made him see her in a new light. Emma walked back behind the counter, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. The man looked at her one last time, as if wanting to say something but couldn't find the words. He slipped the ring into his pocket, stood up on weak legs, and walked out into the storm. Emma didn't know his name. She didn't know that hidden beneath the rags was a man whose face the world adored. A man who gave millions, but now found himself with nothing, except for one waitress's kindness and a small silver ring. Emma watched the door swing shut behind him. Deep down, she prayed he would find his way. She didn't know that tomorrow, her life would change forever when she discovered who he really was. The storm raged through the night. Emma finished cleaning up the diner after the last customer left. She locked the doors, wrapped her coat tight around her shoulders, and stepped outside. The cold wind bit at her skin, but she barely felt it. All she could think about was the man's eyes, how they glowed with a sadness she couldn't shake off. As she walked home through puddles and dark streets, she wondered if he found the pawn shop. She wondered if he got a warm bed for the night. Maybe he would eat something more than soup tomorrow. She told herself it didn't matter if she never saw him again. She had done what she could. But deep down, she felt something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Emma's small apartment was quiet when she got in. Her daughter, Lily, was asleep on the couch. An old blanket wrapped around her tiny body. Emma brushed the girl's hair from her forehead and kissed her gently. She sat on the floor beside her, too tired to move, but too restless to sleep. Her eyes drifted to the empty chain around her neck. The silver ring had been with her through so many nights like this, nights of worry and bills and broken dreams. Giving it away felt like giving away the last piece of a painful past. But maybe that was the point. The next morning, Emma woke to the sound of Lily giggling. She rubbed her eyes and saw her daughter standing by the window, pointing down at the street. "Mama, look, someone's outside." Emma pulled herself up and peered through the blinds. Parked in front of her building was a sleek black car, the kind she'd only seen in movies. And there, standing on the sidewalk in a clean coat, his hair neatly combed, was the man from the diner. Emma's single quotes as heart thudded in her chest. She quickly pulled on her sweater and hurried outside, Lily trailing behind her in her pajamas. The man turned when he heard the door. He looked different now, not just because he was clean and dressed well, but because his eyes were calm, almost glowing with warmth. "Good morning," he said softly. "You found me," Emma said, her voice a whisper. He smiled, a smile that looked so familiar it made her breath catch. "I owe you more than you know." Emma shook her head. "I don't want anything. I just wanted you to be okay." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it, and inside was her silver wedding ring, polished until it shone like new. But beside it sat another ring, an emerald band, delicate and beautiful. "I couldn't pawn your ring," he said. "I didn't need to." Emma frowned. "What do you mean?" He looked at her, his eyes kind but now clear, no longer hidden behind hair and shadows. "Emma, my name is Keanu Reeves." Emma stared at him, the name echoing in her mind like a distant bell. She wanted to laugh, to tell him that was impossible, but looking into his eyes, she knew it was true. "Why were you out there?" she asked, her voice trembling. Keanu took a deep breath. "I lost myself for a while. I wanted to disappear, to know if kindness still existed without the cameras and crowds. I never expected to find it in a small diner at midnight." Emma's eyes welled up. She looked down at the box in his hand. "I don't understand." Keanu placed the box in her palm and closed her fingers around it. "The silver ring is yours. The other one, it's for you to keep or sell if you ever need to. I want you and Lily to have a better life." Emma shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I can't take this." Keanu reached out, gently brushing away her tears. "Emma, you gave me hope when I had none. You gave up something precious to feed me, a stranger. Let me do this for you." Emma's legs felt weak. She glanced at Lily, who stood barefoot on the cold pavement, watching them with wide, innocent eyes. "Please," Keanu said, his voice raw. "Let me help you, the way you helped me." Emma fell into his arms, sobbing quietly against his chest. For the first time in years, she felt the heavy weight of survival lift, if only a little. When she pulled away, she looked at him, not as the famous star the world adored, but as the man who reminded her that kindness always finds its way back. Keanu knelt down and ruffled Lily's hair. "And you, little one, you keep making your mama smile, okay?" Lily giggled, hugging Keanu tightly like he was a hero in one of her bedtime stories. Emma watched them, her heart swelling with something she thought she'd lost forever: belief in the goodness of people. But neither of them knew that this was only the beginning. What Keanu did next would change not just Emma's life, but the entire town. The black car's engine hummed quietly as Keanu drove Emma and Lily through town later that week. It felt unreal to Emma, sitting in the back seat of a luxury car when just days ago she'd been counting tips to buy milk and bread. Lily pressed her nose to the window, pointing at every little thing: the bakery she loved, the old library, the rusty playground she and her friends called their castle. Keanu glanced back at them through the rearview mirror, a soft smile tugging at his lips. "Emma, I hope you don't mind." I have something I'd like to show you. Emma clutched her purse nervously, the small velvet box tucked safely inside. She still couldn't believe it all. Keanu, you don't have to do any more, really. You've already done so much. He shook his head, his eyes gentle but firm. Emma, you gave without expecting anything in return. You didn't look at me like a burden or a lost cause. You saw a man who was hungry, that's all. You reminded me what real kindness looks like. Emma looked down at her hands, calloused and cracked from years of scrubbing dishes and cleaning counters. She'd never thought of herself as special. She just did what she hoped someone would do for her if she were ever that hungry and alone. The car turned off the main road and rumbled down a bumpy lane. They pulled up in front of a small, abandoned building with boarded-up windows and weeds growing tall around the foundation. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. Emma stepped out, confusion twisting in her chest. What is this place? Keanu stood beside her, the wind tugging at his hair. This used to be a community center, he said, back before the funding ran out. I found out it's been empty for years, but I think it can be more. Emma stared at him. Keanu, I don't understand. He knelt down and lifted Lily into his arms. She squealed with delight, wrapping her arms around his neck. Imagine a place where kids like Lily can play safely, where people who are struggling can get a warm meal, no questions asked, where someone who feels invisible can find help instead of a locked door. Emma felt her breath catch in her throat. A shelter. Keanu nodded. More than that. A place of hope. A place where the kindness you showed me is multiplied 1,000 times. Emma's eyes blurred with tears. She shook her head slowly, overwhelmed. Why me? Why are you doing this for me? Keanu's voice was soft, steady. Because you reminded me who I want to be. I can't fix the whole world, Emma, but I can start here, and I want you to help me. Emma stumbled back a step. Me? I don't know anything about running a place like this. You know how to care for people. Keanu said, you know what it means to feel alone and to still choose kindness. That's what this place needs. The rest, I can help with. We'll get people who know what they're doing. We'll do this together. Emma pressed her hands over her mouth, trying to quiet the sob that rose in her chest. Lily wiggled down from Keanu's arms and ran to her mother, hugging her legs tight. Emma, Keanu said, his voice softer now. This ring you gave me, it saved me, not because of the money, but because it reminded me that people still care. You gave up something precious for a stranger. Now I want to give you something better to hold on to, a future. Emma sank to her knees in the grass, pulling Lily close. The wind whipped her hair around her face, but she didn't care. She looked up at Keanu, tears streaming down her cheeks. I don't know what to say, she whispered. Say you'll do it with me, he said, holding out his hand. Emma reached out, her hand trembling as she took his. Yes, yes, I'll do it. Keanu squeezed her hand, his eyes shining. Then let's bring hope back to this town. One meal, one smile, one kindness at a time. As they stood there in front of the old building, the afternoon sun broke through the clouds. It cast a warm light over the cracked walls and boarded windows, making it look, just for a moment, like a place where dreams could grow again. And none of them knew that by opening those doors, they would soon be tested in ways they could never imagine. Because not everyone in town wanted kindness to come back. Asterisk news of Keanu's plan spread faster than Emma ever thought possible. By the end of the week, people were talking about it. At the grocery store, in the diner, even at the little playground Lily loved so much. Some folks called it a blessing. Others called it a waste of time and money. But Emma didn't have time to listen to gossip. She was too busy scrubbing floors, wiping dust from broken windows, and helping Keanu clear out old furniture that had been left behind. Keanu worked alongside her every day. He rolled up his sleeves, hammered loose boards, and carried heavy boxes without ever acting like he was special. Sometimes, Emma would catch him laughing with Lily, letting her help, by handing him nails or sweeping with a broom twice her size. Watching them together made something warm settle deep in Emma's chest, a feeling she hadn't let herself believe in for so long. But not everyone was happy to see the community center come back to life. One afternoon, as Emma finished cleaning out a storage room, she heard raised voices near the front door. She rushed out to find Keanu standing calmly in front of a man in an expensive suit, Mr. Hargrove, the landlord who owned half the street and never missed a chance to remind everyone of it. You can't just take this place and think you're going to fix everything. Hargrove sneered, his eyes narrowing. People like them, he gestured toward Emma, are always looking for a free ride. Emma's stomach twisted. She wanted to shout, to tell him how hard she'd worked her whole life. But Keanu stepped forward, his voice calm but strong. We're not giving handouts, Mr. Hargrove, we're giving hope. This town needs that more than your empty buildings. Hargrove laughed, cold and sharp. Hope doesn't pay the bills, Mr. Movie Star, and it sure doesn't keep trouble away, mark my words. This place will bring nothing but drifters and addicts. You'll regret this. Keanu didn't flinch. We'll take that risk. Hargrove's smile twisted into something dark. We'll see how long your charity lasts. With that, he turned on his heel and stormed off, his shiny shoes clicking against the cracked sidewalk. Emma let out a shaky breath, her hands trembling. Are you sure about this? She asked Keanu as they watched Hargrove's car speed away. Keanu turned to her, his eyes steady. Emma, people like him want everyone to stay afraid and divided. They don't want kindness to grow because it makes them lose control. We can't let that stop us. Emma nodded, though doubt still lingered like a shadow in her mind. They worked late into the night, painting walls and fixing broken doors. Lily curled up in a sleeping bag in the corner, her small snores echoing through the empty room. Sometimes when Emma's hands ached from scrubbing, she'd look at Keanu and feel her strength return. He never once acted like he was better than her. He listened to her ideas, asked her about what people really needed, and reminded her over and over that this was their place, not just his. One evening, as they sat on the dusty floor eating sandwiches, Keanu looked at Emma and asked, "Why did you really give me that ring, Emma? The truth." Emma swallowed hard, her eyes on the floor. Because when I saw you, I saw me. I saw the part of me that used to feel invisible. I kept that ring to remind myself of what I'd lost. But giving it away made me feel free, like maybe I was ready to believe in good things again. Keanu nodded, a soft smile playing at his lips. Then let's make this place a good thing worth believing in. Emma leaned back against the wall, her heart heavy and light at the same time. Outside, the wind howled through the old trees. She knew Hargrove wasn't finished. People like him never gave up that easily. But for the first time in years, she felt like she wasn't alone in the fight, and she was right, because trouble was already on its way, creeping in through the cracks they hadn't sealed yet. But this time, Emma wasn't just a waitress waiting for life to happen. She was ready to fight for hope, and she wasn't fighting alone. The community center opened its doors on a rainy Saturday morning. A few brave families came first, their umbrellas dripping on the new welcome mat Emma had found at a thrift shop. Inside, the smell of fresh paint mixed with the aroma of hot soup that simmered in the kitchen. Lily ran from room to room, showing kids where they could read books or play with donated toys. Keanu stood by the door, greeting each person with a quiet smile that made them feel seen. Emma could hardly believe it. The empty, cold building was now filled with warmth and laughter. She watched an elderly man sip his soup slowly, savoring every bite. She saw a young mother rock her baby to sleep in a clean corner, with blankets and a small heater. Every moment reminded her why she'd given that ring away, because sometimes hope needed a door to walk through. But by late afternoon, word got around that not everyone was there for the right reasons. Emma noticed a group of teenagers hanging around the back entrance, their hoodies pulled up, eyes darting like they were up to no good. She went outside, tugging her coat tighter around her. The rain had slowed, but the ground was muddy. "Can I help you boys?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. One of them, skinny, restless, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, shrugged, just looking around. Emma glanced at the door behind them. "This place is for everyone. You know, you don't have to sneak around." The boy laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Yeah. What's the catch?" "No catch," Emma said. "Just respect. Respect for the people here, for the food, the toys, the shelter. If you need something, come inside. The boy's eyes narrowed. And if we don't, Emma felt a chill crawl up her spine. But before she could answer, Keanu stepped out behind her. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, his presence calm but strong. The boys shifted uneasily, glancing at each other. Keanu finally spoke, his voice quiet but clear. You don't owe us anything, but you can't hurt people here. This place is for everyone who needs a second chance. That includes you. So, if you need a warm meal, come in. If you want trouble, find it somewhere else. The boy scoffed, but his tough mask cracked for just a second. He muttered something under his breath and stalked off. The others trailing behind him, Emma let out a shaky breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. You okay? Keanu asked, his hand brushing her shoulder. I'm fine, Emma said, her voice softer than she felt. They're just kids, angry, lost kids. Maybe they'll come back for the right reasons, Keanu said. Maybe not, but the door stays open. Emma looked at him, her heart full of a strange mix of fear and courage. What if someone really tries to ruin this? Hargrove, those boys. What if they push too hard? Keanu turned to face her, his eyes deep with something, strong and steady. Then we push back, with more kindness, with more strength. This place was built on the hope you gave me when you handed me that ring. No one can take that away. Inside, Lily ran up to them, her hair damp from playing by the door. She tugged at Keanu's sleeve. Come see, Mama made cookies for everyone. Keanu scooped her up, laughing as he carried her inside. Emma followed, wiping a tear from her cheek. In the kitchen, she watched as Keanu sat with the kids, helping them build block towers and pour cups of juice. She caught the eyes of an old man who nodded at her with quiet gratitude. For every door that slammed in her face before, for every night she spent alone wondering how to feed Lily. This moment made it worth it. The warmth of the room, the laughter, the shared hope. It all felt like the start of something bigger than herself. But in the shadows outside, Hargrove watched from his car, rain dripping down the windshield. He tapped his finger on the steering wheel, his eyes cold and calculating. This wasn't over. Not yet. He would find a way to shut them down. Because some people hated what they couldn't control. And Hargrove hated hope more than anything. Emma didn't know he was there. She didn't know the fight that was coming. But she was ready, because kindness had found its home, and she'd fight to protect it, no matter what. The weeks that followed tested everything Emma thought she was capable of. The community center grew busier each day. Families who once felt invisible came for warm meals. Kids brought their homework and stayed safe until their parents finished late shifts. The walls that once echoed with emptiness now hummed with life. But for every smile, there were whispers in dark corners. Rumors that Hargrove was planning something to ruin them. Emma didn't want to believe it. But the signs were there. The health inspector came 3 times in 1 week, nitpicking at the tiniest things, a cracked tile here, a flickering light bulb there. The fire marshal showed up unannounced, claiming the old wiring was a hazard. Each time, Keanu stood by Emma's side, patient but firm, showing every permit, every fix they'd done. They stayed open, but the tension was like a wire pulled too tight. One evening, after the last family left, and Lily was asleep in her favorite blanket fort, Emma and Keanu sat in the small office they'd turned into their planning room. The donated desk was piled with paperwork, grant applications, and letters from people who wanted to help. Emma rubbed her tired eyes. We can't keep fighting like this. They're trying to bleed us dry. We fix one thing, they find 2 more. Keanu leaned back in the creaky chair, his eyes thoughtful but unshaken. Emma, do you regret it? She looked at him, surprised. Regret what? Giving me that ring. Starting all of this. Emma reached up, touching the empty chain that still hung around her neck. Never. It was the best thing I ever did. Keanu's smile was tired but warm. Then they can throw whatever they want at us. They can't stop what this place means. Just then, Dave, the same co-worker who once told Emma not to waste soup on strangers, knocked on the door. He looked out of breath, his hair sticking up like he'd run all the way from the diner. Emma. Keanu, you need to come outside. They rushed out to the front steps. In the street, dozens of people stood in the cold night air, holding candles that flickered like tiny stars. Parents, children, elders, faces Emma knew from every corner of town. In the front, the young boy who'd once scoffed at her stood with his friends, heads bowed respectfully. Emma's eyes filled with tears. "What is this?" An elderly woman stepped forward, her voice shaking but clear. "We heard Hargreaves trying to shut you down. We won't let him. This place, you gave us hope. You fed us when we were hungry. You gave our kids a place to feel safe. If he wants to close this door, he'll have to get through all of us first." Keanu moved to stand beside Emma, his hand brushing hers. Together they looked out over the small crowd, neighbors, who once kept their heads down now standing tall. For something worth protecting, Emma stepped forward, her voice carrying over the quiet street. "This place isn't mine. It isn't Keanu's. It's yours. You are the reason it stays open. You are the reason hope lives here. They can threaten us all they want, but they can't take this away unless we let them." The crowd erupted in soft cheers, candles raising higher. Behind them, the old building seemed to glow in the night, not with fancy lights or new paint, but with the warmth of something bigger than all the walls they'd fixed later. As people filtered inside for hot cocoa and warm blankets, Keanu and Emma stood together in the doorway. Lily ran up, sleepy-eyed but smiling. She tugged on Keanu's coat. "Did we win?" Keanu knelt down, brushing her hair back. "We're winning, Lily, one day at a time." Emma looked at him, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for not giving up." Keanu's eyes shone with that same kindness that first night she'd seen him shivering in the diner. "No, Emma, thank you. You gave away your ring, something you thought you needed, to feed a stranger. You planted a seed of hope that night. All I did was help it grow." Emma slipped her hand into his, feeling the warmth of it. She glanced around the old building, alive with laughter and music from an old radio someone found in the back room. She realized then that the ring she'd let go of was never really about loss. It was about letting something better in. As the night settled around them, the rain finally stopped. The candles burned low, but their light stayed, flickering in every heart that had come together, refusing to let hope be shut down. And in the middle of it all stood a waitress who once believed she had nothing left to give, and a man who reminded her that kindness never leaves you empty. It only makes you whole.